This is the sound of a broken motor coupling, one of the most common problems on this style of washer. In this chapter we will be looking at the motor and the motor coupling. To access the motor coupling, we are first going to need to remove the pump from the motor. Use a flathead screwdriver to lift the mounting clips off of the pump. Rotate the clips 90 degrees and slide them out from the motor slots. As you can see, they insert into the motor and pivot, anchoring the pump to the motor. Once you have those clips removed, assuming that the pump is not rusted to the motor shaft, it should just slide off. If the pump is rusted to the motor, you might want to look at the pump chapter for pump replacement. It isn't necessary to completely remove the pump to get to the motor coupling, but it makes the process slightly easier. If you do disconnect the pump hoses, this would be a good time to have a pan or some towels ready. There will usually be water remaining in the base of the tub and the drain line. If the tub is full of water, first you want to check your lid switch, but also consider where all that water will go when you disconnect the hose from the pump. You may be able to pinch off the hose from the tub while you work on the coupling. Next, we will remove the motor. The motor is held on to the transmission with the same kind of clips used on the pump. However, these clips have a screw that passes through them to ensure that the clip remains secure. These screws are either 1/4 inch or 5/16 inch and remove counterclockwise. Unplug the wiring harness attached to the motor. Pop the bottom clip off first and remove it from the plate. The top clip will hold the motor in place while you remove the lower clip, and make removal of the motor nice and smooth. Before you remove the top clip, be sure that you have the motor supported. You can also remove the motor and leave the pump attached if you are having problems removing the pump from the motor. Now we can see the motor coupling. The coupling is made up of 3 parts: a plastic side that mounts to the motor, another that attaches to the transmission, and a rubber center that ties the 2 halves together. Some older models may look slightly different, but this new style will replace all past designs. Most commonly, the shaft of the motor or transmission, when overloaded, will crack the coupling something like this. Older styles would break the pins off or stretch the rubber connection ring. What I usually tell people is that it's okay to fill the washer up, but you don't want to pack clothes down around the agitator. That's what will cause this to break. Or worse, it may damage the transmission or clutch. If the coupling is intact, the most likely cause of similar symptoms is the clutch or transmission. You may want to check out the drive system chapter for a closer look at this system. So now we have this broken motor coupling installed. I'm going to trick the pressure switch into thinking that the tub is full of water so you can see what the washer will act like with this partial break. As you can see, it will still agitate. However, when I advance the cycle to the spin, the drive system reverses direction, applying more pressure on the coupling, and it starts to slip within the coupling. Fortunately, the sound is very distinct, so if you hear that sound, you have a broken motor coupling. Now let's learn how to replace it. Slip a screwdriver behind the old motor coupling and use leverage to rock it off of the motor and transmission shafts. Use caution in doing this and try not to put too much pressure on the motor, just a small rocking motion till it comes free. To reinstall the new coupling, use the butt of your nut driver using light to medium strength taps. You need to be careful not to strike the transmission with too much force. It isn't too much of a danger, you just want to be mindful of it. This replacement motor coupling has a new metal reinforcement ring that strengthens the part of the coupling that is most likely to break. With this new style coupling, it is more important than ever that the washer not be overloaded. Instead of the coupling breaking, it is more likely that you'll have a problem with your clutch or transmission, as I mentioned before, and these are much more expensive parts to replace. To reinstall the motor, position the plug terminal to the right of the motor. Position the motor coupling at the 12 o'clock position to match the position of the coupling that is installed on the side of the transmission. Position all of the rubber grommets that dampen vibration from the motor onto the motor mounting plate. This is the tricky part, so take your time. Assuming that the coupling is lined up, set the 2 lower pins on the back of the motor into the dampening grommets on the motor mounting plate and tip the motor up into position. I've done this a few times, so if you don't get it on the first try, just keep trying and you'll get it. Hold the motor up and reinstall your top clip first. Insert it vertically and rotate it 90 degrees. Once that clip is snapped into place, the motor will stay in position, making it much simpler to reinstall your lower clip. Reinstall the clip screws that you removed. Reinstall your pump. Now, a faulty motor can be a very difficult thing to correctly diagnose. In most cases, it's best to check the motor with a voltmeter set to 120 volts AC and measure if the motor is receiving the proper amount of electricity when it should be running. Determine with your model's wiring diagram what color wire is supplying power to the motor. Disconnect the pump to eliminate it as a cause. Connect 1 meter lead to this contact point and the other connects to any white wire connection. If the motor is receiving 120 volts AC and is dead or humming and not moving, it would be fairly safe to say that you are in need of a new motor. Another common symptom is when the washer runs for a short period of time and stops for a rest before it will work again. This symptom would be caused by the motor overheating and tripping a thermal cut-off safety. I'm bypassing the lid switch to show you how a properly functioning spin cycle works. If you use this technique, be sure that you're clear of all moving components and exposed wires. The first part of the drain spin will only run the pump to clear excess water weight. When I release the lid switch once, it simulates an automatic pause in the timer that allows the transmission to shift into the spin portion of the cycle.